Why black people don't eat at potlucks, the dark history. Picture this. It's 1966. The fluorescent lights hum above a company break room in Chicago. Folding tables are pushed together, covered with aluminum pans, jello molds, and casseroles still steaming hot. The office has been buzzing all week about this integrated potluck, a symbol of progress, they call it. There's laughter, clinking cups, a few Motown tunes playing softly from a transistor radio. But in the corner stands Miss Thelma, 53 years old, a secretary who's been through segregation, bus boycotts, and colored-only entrances. She's watching as her white coworkers dig into bowls of potato salad that sat out since morning. She forces a polite smile when they offer her a plate, but her eyes give her away. She's not touching that food. She clutches the Tupperware she brought from home, a neatly packed lunch of fried fish, rice, and collard greens, and quietly slips back to her desk. To anyone else, it might look like snobbery. To her, it's instinct. Because Miss Thelma remembers what the world was like before this new era of workplace integration. She remembers when black employees couldn't sit in the same lunchrooms, when they had to enter through the back door, when being offered food from the wrong person could mean humiliation, or worse. Her refusal isn't about manners, it's about memory. Long before potlucks became friendly weekend traditions, shared meals were a weapon. Enslaved black people were fed slop so foul it could barely be called food, leftovers swept from plantation tables, meat scraps not fit for dogs, moldy cornbread, spoiled milk. They knew food could nourish, but it could also kill. So communal eating outside your own circle became something you approached with suspicion. You trusted the hands you knew, because your life depended on it. Even after emancipation, that fear didn't fade. In the Jim Crow South, black families were excluded from white gatherings, but still expected to cook the food for them. They would prepare entire spreads, fried chicken, pies, greens, but they were never allowed to eat from those same tables. Why? Because sharing food meant sharing humanity, and white superiority couldn't risk that. So while black cooks were trusted to feed entire towns, their presence at the table was treated like contamination. Generations passed, and the lesson stuck. They'll eat our food, but we can't trust theirs. And the fear wasn't imagined. It was documented, enforced, and baked into the law long before anyone called it being picky. In the Jim Crow era, food wasn't just a meal. It was a battlefield. Black people grew up in a world where the wrong bite, the wrong kitchen, the wrong counter could cost them their lives. The rules were clear, printed in law books and nailed to storefronts. No eating inside certain restaurants, no sitting at certain counters, no walking through the same entrance as white customers. Signs for whites-only dining rooms hung like threats above doorways, and everyone knew the stories of what happened when those rules were broken. In 1958, for example, a youth group tied to the NAACP staged the now famous sit-in at Dockham Drug Store in Wichita, Kansas. The black students sat quietly at a whites-only lunch counter, day after day, asking to be served. They were refused, mocked, and threatened just for wanting to eat where white patrons ate. It wasn't about hunger, it was about dignity. That sit-in became one of the earliest victories against segregated dining, proving that for decades, the simple act of eating could be an act of rebellion. Picture a black domestic worker in 1927 Mississippi, cooking a full Sunday dinner for a white family, biscuits, ham, gravy, greens. But forced to eat her own lunch, outside on the porch like an animal? Or the factory worker in Birmingham who learned on his first day that white employees could eat hot meals in the cafeteria, but black workers had to eat in the boiler room, perched on overturned crates next to the furnace. Even if a white coworker brought in food, black employees were often forbidden to accept it. Managers feared the sight of shared lunch would look too much like equality. Oral histories from black workers across the South and Midwest tell chillingly similar stories. Men and women recalled being mocked for the food they brought from home, called too greasy, too spicy, or too strong by white coworkers. Some said their lunches mysteriously disappeared or were found dumped in the trash, Others told of finding their food tampered with or soiled as a form of humiliation. These weren't isolated incidents. They were daily reminders that even a lunch break could become an arena of racial control. For many Black employees, bringing food from home wasn't just about taste or pride. It was an act of safety, a way to ensure no one could poison, ridicule, or police what they ate. Restaurants weren't safer. In states like Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas, Jim Crow laws literally dictated where a Black body could eat. Many establishments served Black customers from back doors next to garbage bins, if they served them at all. Refusing food wasn't rudeness, it was self-protection. If you grew up hearing your parents say, "Don't eat anything from that house," it wasn't gossip, it was inherited survival. They remembered the Black travelers during the Great Migration, who were poisoned or hospitalized after eating from hostile diners in sundown towns. They remembered the humiliation of being handed their food through kitchen doors beside dumpsters because stepping foot in the dining room was illegal. And in mixed workplaces, long before HR departments tried to pretend racism didn't happen, the fear was sharper. Black workers brought their own food because they knew who cooked it, who cleaned the counter, who washed the hands preparing it. They watched white coworkers place raw, undercooked meat next to dessert, let pets lick plates, or leave potato salad unrefrigerated for hours, behaviors that went against everything Black families had been taught about sanitation. But beneath the sanitation concerns was something deeper. Black workers knew that behind closed doors, racism mixed with opportunity could turn deadly. So when a white coworker cheerfully offered a slice of homemade pie that looked suspect, you smiled, you nodded, and you quietly said no thank you. That wasn't paranoia, that was experience. At Potlucks, the stakes felt even higher. A dish sitting on a long table in a mixed office didn't just represent food, it represented trust. And Black families had centuries of evidence showing that trust was rarely returned. They remembered the stories of Black teachers, nurses, and clerks who weren't allowed to use the same employee break rooms as white staff. They remembered the humiliation of being told their cooking smelled too Black, too ethnic, too dirty when it was seasoned, sanitized, and carefully prepared. They remembered being told they couldn't bring fried chicken or greens to company lunches because it made white coworkers uncomfortable. Yet those same coworkers offered dishes made in kitchens Black folks wouldn't feed a stray cat in. So the suspicion passed down, not as hatred, not as separation, as memory. A memory of segregated entrances, segregated counters, segregated plates. A memory of being denied the right to sit down and eat like a human being. A memory of workplaces where kindness could instantly turn into cruelty. A memory of laws designed to remind Black people that their bodies didn't deserve the same safety around food. Add to that the hygiene gap that developed across generations. Black families boiled dish rags, bleached cutting boards, soaked meat in vinegar and salt, sanitized sinks until they shined. Not because they were obsessive, because when you're blamed for disease, you make cleanliness a form of defense. Meanwhile, they saw with their own eyes that many white households didn't follow those same standards. Pets on counters, children digging hands in bowls, food left out uncovered, meat cleaned only with water or not at all. It wasn't judgment, it was observation, and it became cultural memory. That's why church basements became the safest potlucks in Black America. Sister Johnson's macaroni? Safe. Auntie Brenda's sweet potatoes? Safe. But food from people you didn't grow up with, didn't trust, didn't know how clean their house was. Absolutely not. It wasn't personal, it was protocol. It was passed down protection wrapped in politeness. So when you see a Black person at a potluck scanning the room, politely refusing plates, choosing the item still in sealed store packaging, understand that this isn't pettiness or pickiness. This was proof that this was cultural memory.
No, not today.
You sure? There's plenty.
I'm fine. Thanks.
It's generational data. It's ancestral instinct. It's memory passed down from kitchens where cleanliness meant dignity, pride, and survival. It's the echo of mothers whispering, You don't know how everybody lives. Take no chances. Because for Black people, food has always been more than food. It is history. It is protection. It is resistance. It is knowing that in a world where our bodies and our humanity were constantly endangered, our kitchens were places of refuge and control. And the rule remains: if I don't know your kitchen, I don't know your food. That's why even today, office potlucks, neighborhood cookouts, and communal buffets come with a side of quiet caution. It's not superstition. It's survival encoded across centuries. And at Scope News, we're here to tell the truth. Black people don't avoid potlucks because they're rude. They avoid potlucks because history taught them to be careful what plate they pick up, literally. Scope News tells the truth. Here are the facts. Black food exclusion during slavery is documented in plantation ledgers, WPA slave narratives, and post-Civil War testimony from formerly enslaved families describing unequal food distribution, forced slop diets, and restrictions on kitchen access. Jim Crow segregation laws across the South legally banned Black people from dining rooms, lunch counters, and restaurant entrances, as documented in state statutes from Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. Workplace discrimination around food appears in mid-20th century NAACP records, local newspaper archives, and federal labor investigations that noted segregated cafeterias, tampered lunches, unfair firings, and restrictions on shared meals. The 1958 Dockham Drugstore sit-in in Wichita, Kansas, organized by the NAACP Youth Council, remains one of the earliest recorded challenges to segregated eating spaces in America. Oral histories across Black communities consistently describe distrust of non-Black kitchens stemming from both sanitation differences and documented racist incidents involving food tampering, exclusion, and humiliation. Legal disclaimer: this content is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes. It explores historical realities, cultural memory, and documented social experiences within Black American communities. Viewer discretion is advised, as this report discusses racism, segregation, workplace discrimination, and generational trauma. While this narrative is grounded in historical sources and first-hand accounts, some scenes are dramatized for clarity and emotional context. Scope News aims to reflect history accurately, but acknowledges that no single account can capture the full complexity of lived Black experiences across regions and generations. Viewers are encouraged to research additional material to broaden their understanding.